about Daredevil. So
Cool.
we want to talk the show first and then the book.
Yeah.
Okay, his letter is about the show. So
All right.
just let me know when you want me to read it. He texted it to me for me to edit it.
Do you care if I
Because
pimp
his-
the movie for a second at the beginning of this, since it comes out Saturday?
I mean, personally, I would find that very offensive, but
Okay.
just whatever.
Never mind. All right. You guys
Just
ready?
kidding. Let me make sure I'm lined up here. Then yeah, I'm good.
3, 2, 1, go.
I totally didn't do it.
Paul,
My bad. I'm
well,
sorry.
It's gonna do the thing anyway.
Oh yeah. Just go ahead and I'm gonna use. What did I do last time?
I don't know.
Me neither. Just go ahead. I won't do it. I'm probably gonna use one of the little stickers we got.
Ha! Got him.
Okay.
I'm ready when you are. Yeah, but I'm not gonna be saying it, so you can just crank it in.
Oh, you're not going to be singing anything?
Yeah, I'm just gonna put in one of those.
Okay.
I'll probably do like Mark Lloyd or something since he writes Daredevil.
All right, cool. Let's go. 3,
All right.
2, 1, go.
Who are they?
Who are we?
And who are we dealing with?
Who the heck are you?
Who do you think you are?
I don't know what you're talking about.
Who are these sick people?
And, who are these two attractive young people?
Who are those guys?
It's the Ancillary Characters Podcast, the podcast to the website ancillarycharacters.com. I'm one of your hosts. My name is Seth Bree.
Wow. Love.
I'm scared, guys.
This is unbelievable. This is on one breath. Okay. All right.
Love.
Okay. We just lost everyone.
Seth Breedlove, and I'm joined tonight by my two lovely co-hosts from the state of North Carolina
Alan Boone.
and from the state of Kentucky.
Paul Shirley.
And this is your favorite sports talk show. Every week we come to you live to talk about sports, particularly NASCAR and soccer and Australian rules football. And as usual this week, we want to talk about the fabled career of one Richard Petty.
I'm not sure what's happening right now. Am I on the wrong show?
Yeah, sports ball. Let's go sports.
This is the podcast of the website, ancillarycharacters.blogspot.com, formerly ancillarycharacters.com. And every week we talk about comics and movies and whatever else has come up in our lives. And this particular episode is going to be devoted entirely to the subject of Marvel's beloved Daredevil, one of my favorite characters in all of comics. One of my favorite Marvel characters, particularly. And so, yeah. Was I on last week's show? I can't remember what is happening.
Yes.
Was there a show last week?
Was
You were
last
on
week the
week's.
one
Okay.
talked about stuff?
Okay.
It was the one where you said, "Shut up, Ben."
Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah, that was a good
It was
show.
last week.
So
it was.
Seriously, shut up. He hasn't shut up.
He's still
He has
not
not.
shutting up.
He's still
Ben,
on.
shut your stupid... No one cares.
Nobody.
Not even me.
I have started. I was telling you guys before the show. I've started watching a lot of basketball, and I historically gave up basketball years ago when my favorite my favorite comic character, Shaquille O'Neal, when my favorite
Looks like a
basketball
comic
player,
character.
Shaquille O'Neal, quit the Orlando Magic. I walked away from sports. And I had not been back until this playoff season. And for some reason, I started watching the Cavs play, and now I am like full-on addicted it's all I've been doing at night before bed is watching the NBA playoffs. So I'm very excited to finish this show so I can watch the Cavs game while I'm getting ready to head down to Salt Fork for the weekend. So we're all huge basketball fans. I mean, Allen obviously is the man who invented the 360 dunk.
Oh yeah, with the
and
donut.
By,
Coffee.
by invented, how exactly do you mean when you say
And
invented?
Paul Shirley has won the NBA three-point contest 6 years in a row.
Ironically, there is an NBA player named Paul Shirley.
That's true.
That's not me.
I did
Not
not
me.
know
I'm
that.
not that. That's not the same Paul Shirley. Yeah.
I
We're
once found
launching-
it.
Yep.
Oops, sorry, Alan. Go ahead.
I once came across an article, no, a YouTube video. That's what it was. It said Paul Shirley is a douche,
Yeah,
Yes.
I wrote it.
and I watched it, and I was like, "This is describing the Paul Shirley I know."
Yeah, I wasn't on that,
course
but I
not.
wrote it for the guy who did it. So it was actually about our Paul. Why don't we move on to take it or leave it so we can get right into the subject of this week's show, Ben Affleck.
Hi, and welcome to Take It or Leave It, the part of the show where we talk about Daredevil. Well, in this episode at least. So, we're going to talk about some Netflix series. We're going to talk about some Man Without Fear by Frank Miller and J.R. And we'll tell you whether we take them into our hearts forever or leave them to rot on the shelf and or the cloud server where Netflix stores all of its video. So yeah, synopsis.
There's a
Synopsis.
guy, he has no fear. He gets hit by a truck as a small child and becomes a cat man.
Yeah, that's basically
No.
the story. He gets hit in the eyeballs with radioactive goo, so he becomes Eye-Man. And he's like, like Spider-Man, but with eyes.
Yeah,
can
all
shoot-
over his freaking body. It's
All over.
absolutely
There was
horrifying.
there was a mutant like that in Wolverine and the X-Men.
Yeah. Oh god.
Remember that?
Yeah. Awful. Almost
The
as
kid with
bad
all
as
the
that.
eyeballs.
Almost as bad as that guy that had all the the snot. What was that guy's name? Snot or
Oh,
something?
yeah.
Snot man.
Yeah, and gold balls.
Snot face.
Well, Gold Balls isn't as bad.
Yeah,
Are you saying
Not as
goat
bad
balls?
as the eyeball guy, but still pretty bad. Gold
Oh, okay.
Balls.
I don't know what that is a reference to.
So Daredevil. Let's talk about Daredevil.
All right.
The show.
yeah, we're going full spoiler here, right?
Mhm.
We're like what 3 weeks away from the time that it was released, something like that. We've talked about it here and there on the show. We talked about the first episode. We're going to just give you our thoughts on the season as a whole right here, right now. Alan Boone,
Me?
tell us what you thought.
I had quite a good time with it. I loved it. I remember it came on Friday, and I started watching it, and I watched like 4 episodes Friday. And then by Sunday night, I'd watched all 13 episodes. And it was so good, I just couldn't put it down. Like, I went into it not knowing what to expect because I was like, it's Netflix. I hadn't watched any of the previous like Netflix original series besides Arrested Development, which I had mixed feelings about. So, which I loved Arrested Development, the original, but then the Netflix season 4 was kind of like, it's alright.
Agree.
But I'd never watched like Orange is the New Black or House of Cards, which I know people love. So I wasn't sure. I was like, this could be. I was thinking I'm going to enjoy this no matter what. I didn't expect it to be
Right.
that good though. Like
No, me neither.
the combat choreography is amazing, especially that one scene. Y'all know what I'm talking about.
Oh my gosh.
So good.
The characterization is great. Like Matt and Foggy, I really liked. Kingpin is just such a different villain than what you normally see in something like this, where he believes that he is a good guy, that he is doing what's right for the city, and his evil plan
Yeah.
basically boils down to gentrification. He's wanting to make the city better, But in doing so, he's kicking out all the poor people, and that's like a real world thing. It's not the same as Baron von Strucker going to build a giant space worm to kill everybody. This is like,
That's an awesome idea. I mean, frankly, I think the real hero of this show was Kingpin.
one could make an argument for that until he killed a little old lady.
Hey, you know what? In any
Arguably,
war,
yeah.
there are civilian casualties.
That's true.
And Kingpin was a very
Okay,
identifiable
well,
man.
civilian casualties.
Yeah. Uh, he was an identifiable guy. He just
In
wanted
any
to.
war.
He just wanted to love someone and make his city a better place.
You're
Yeah.
right, and he said that a lot, and I almost even believed it until he beat a man's head off with a car door.
Oh, beautiful.
At that point, and how many times did he slam that door? Like 22 times or
I
something
don't know.
like
That guy's head hit that guy's brain matter hit the sidewalk like a wet rag. Like just
It was like someone was just pouring out, like, I don't know, spaghetti sauce all over and it was just his brains slipping out the back of his busted up skull. So, yeah, you're right. This was not what I expected. And Kingpin was not what I expected him to be. He was great. He was fantastic. His performance was probably, for me, the best performance of the show, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Or he was at least the most interesting take on that character that I've ever seen. And when I say that, it almost sounds like an insult to the other characters. It's not. Charlie Cox was just fantastic casting for Matt Murdock, Daredevil. But the Kingpin was as this like savior of the city who was being pulled to the dark side, Vader style, was just awesome to watch.
Yeah, and I mean, it didn't shy away from just straight up evil in this show, but Kingpin always kind of distanced himself from it. Like the human trafficking we saw in the very first episode was just slimy, disgusting stuff, and
Yeah.
and then Kingpin tried to act like, oh, I was trying to get rid of the Russians from the start, and then he just starts murdering people because they embarrassed him at dinner, and then because just send a message to Matt, and I mean, I don't know, he is like this gentle giant until he goes ape crap insane and takes your head off with a car door.
Yeah, but he's still
With a car
lovable.
door.
He is like the most huggable Marvel villain in history. I kind of want to hang out with him when I'm watching the show.
Are you serious? You're lying.
He's the guy for me. Like he's the guy. I'm rooting for him from beginning to end. And at the end, during that horribly choreographed fight scene in the alley when Daredevil finally defeats him, I found myself just rooting for Kingpin.
So let's talk about the fact that the Kingpin doesn't even show up until the end of the third episode. The whole third episode was a good episode. You're set up with. That's where the violence really stepped up. I mean, you see this guy at the beginning break a man's arm, and the bone is just shoved out the back of his arm.
Is that the episode where the guy impales himself on the fence?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a spot.
Basically, Kingpin sends a hitman, and the hitman takes a bowling ball and smashes a man's brains in with it, and you watch the blood going everywhere. It's really something. And then Matt and Foggy are tasked with representing him in court, which they do, and they get him off of all of the charges. And at the end, Daredevil confronts him in the alleyway, fights him, beats him up, and forces him to give him the name of his who sent you, his boss, and he says the name Wilson Fisk, which is the first time we hear the name in the show. And we don't know who he is. We've never seen him. We've never seen the Kingpin so far. We don't know anything about him. All we know is this name Wilson Fisk, and this guy is so thick by the fact he said his name that he impales his own head on a spike through his own eye socket and kills himself.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he just headbutts a spike.
Mm-hmm.
That has to be one of the more graphic suicides that I've ever seen on film.
I mean, I've seen way more graphic suicides in real life that I happen to be present for. But
Well, that's awful.
that's one of the worst jokes I've ever made. I I
That
instantly
was awful.
apologize for that.
The joke,
Um,
and if that was real.
and the show is definitely violent on another level.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel. I don't know. I love the violence in the show because it never felt gratuitous, but it also wasn't like pulling any punches. I mean, it was
No.
bloody without being like disgustingly bloody and violent without being, stomach churningly violent. But I really liked a couple things about the show. The writing early on was fantastic, especially the first 4 episodes. The first 2 episodes I thought were on another level from anything that came after it, and the Shakespearean aspects of the story, especially with like Wilson Fisk and his buddy Wesley, who was my favorite character in the entire show. Wesley was
He was great.
he was my hero. Um,
Your hero.
and yes, he's the real hero of this story. Unlike Karen Page, the true villain. Um, I loved the show, especially those early episodes. Like I said, I thought it really took off right out of the gate with that first episode. The second episode was even better. I did, and I we could talk about this at some point, but I did not care for the last episode even a little bit. In fact, I would say I hated the last episode. It was everything I loved about the show being absent, and then all of a sudden it was everything I don't like about the Marvel movies being present. So it was cheesily heroic and superhero-y and everything that kind of bothers me about the Marvel movies that I don't like suddenly seeped into this what had been this kind of real-world crime thriller. And it felt horribly out of place. I thought, I mean, everything about the last episode bothered me. The camera angles, everything. It just didn't. It felt out of place. I didn't even like the costume, honestly. I liked the Daredevil wearing his sweatpants around his head look.
I disagree.
What? Fight.
I liked the final episode. I mean, that's what every comic fan was waiting for.
Nope.
And you knew that it was coming the whole time. I mean, it was going to happen. He was not going to stay in this black costume. If this show were like Nolan's Batman, and it was in its own world where there were no other superheroes, and this was the only thing going on in the world proper, then maybe he could have stuck with that costume, and all that stuff in the final episode wouldn't have happened.
I don't
But-
care so much about the costume. Like, the costume is what it is. The tone of the whole thing switched drastically. There's no way you can deny it. Like, all of a sudden it became a completely different show. And everything I liked about the early episodes is gone, and now it's just a heroic beat 'em up. And
I don't think so. I don't think it's now a different show. I think it was just one episode.
that's fine. I mean, I'm just saying that final episode. I haven't seen anything beyond that, and I'm not going to let that final episode color what came before it.
Right, and I'll admit that it was different. I mean, that last episode was different because the good guys won. I mean, they were accustomed to losing up to that point, to say the least.
Yeah, I mean, up to the very end, I wasn't sure that Matt was even going to win. I thought that Daredevil was going to kill him, Foggy was going to become Daredevil, and or Kingpin was going to kill him. Did I say Daredevil?
Foggy was going to become Daredevil. Yeah.
And then Batman would swoop in and save the day. So it didn't really meet my expectations either. But I thought the last episode was good. It was different, I admit. But it was like the part that I most liked about it was Kingpin finally admitting that he is bad.
Yeah.
That scene where he's talking to the FBI guys about how the story of the Good Samaritan, how he always thought of himself as the Samaritan, but he wasn't the Samaritan, he wasn't the Levite, he wasn't the priest, he was the man of ill intent who set upon the traveler and left him to die.
Was anyone else waiting for the rest of the Mighty Ducks to come in and join Foggy in a flying V to take down Wilson Fisk and his gang of thugs?
So, who else was surprised at the end of episode 10 when Karen picked up that gun and put like 5 bullets into Wesley's chest?
Yeah, at that point, I was ready for Karen to die, and it has not changed. I'm still waiting for her to get her comeuppance for her
She's gonna wind
brutal
up getting
killing
killed.
of an innocent man.
I
An
might have
innocent
gasped
man.
audibly.
An innocent, the real hero.
G.I. Joe, American hero.
Wesley.
I did like Wesley. I felt sorry. You know, they made you feel sorry for even the bad guys in this. You know, I felt a little sorry for Wilson Fisk. I mean, if like the episode, what was it, episode 9, where it shows, or episode 10, or 8, I mean, where it showed like his childhood,
brutally
and all that
murdering
stuff.
his father with a hammer.
That was awful.
Fantastic.
Awful.
Yeah, like whenever Vanessa was in the hospital and then Wesley died, I thought, man, like Kingpin's finally getting. I mean, his like not only was Daredevil and what Matt was doing falling apart, Kingpin, everything he was doing was falling apart, and I was almost saddened by that. Like I was thinking, oh no, not Kingpin. Then I was like, wait a minute.
He's the bad guy. I know it. It was. This is the one of the best, if not the best, for me, representation of the relationship between Daredevil and the Kingpin. Like they defined one another in this story, whether they want to admit it or not. If Kingpin did not exist and it was just a bunch of bad people in Hell's Kitchen, then Daredevil would have won way earlier. You know, he could handle the Russians, he could handle all them, and he probably wouldn't be as strong as he is. But he had an equal or greater, even possibly, in the Kingpin. So it was just a great story. It was one of the best. It was probably the best superhero-based show that I've ever seen in the sense of building that relationship between the villain and the superhero and creating such a, I don't know, dynamic between them. It wasn't like Smallville, where Lex and Clark were friends throughout their whole childhood. They were immediately at odds, but you couldn't tell if, you know, Kingpin was really evil or if he was just misguided. But their relationship is what drove Daredevil to stepping up and becoming the true hero, and Kingpin to sinking down and becoming the true villain.
Daredevil
Or
really stepping up and bullying people along with his bully group of Foggy and Karen the murderess.
I really did read an article on Polygon painting Kingpin, not necessarily as the good guy, but it was basically saying Daredevil's the villain of the story, and Kingpin's an honest man, whereas Daredevil lies to all of his friends. And it made some good points, but at the same time, I think it was being controversial for the sake of clicks.
Did Ben write it?
I think he did.
You jackass, Ben.
Ben Urich.
Oh, no.
Ben's dead. Ben Urich is dead.
What about him?
Yeah, that shocked me that he died.
That was stupid.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. That character was fantastic. That is a great character in the comics. It was a great character on the show. It seemed like a completely needless death to me.
I agree with that, but I thought that whole scene was fantastic.
Oh, yeah.
It's just, for one thing, I didn't expect it to happen.
I didn't.
And then
I think that's what they were going for, too, is trying to do the unexpected, but I agree. I don't think it was necessary.
Yeah, but Kingpin's line where he said, you involve my mother. I'm not here to threaten you, Mr. Urich. I'm here to kill you. And then he killed him.
Yeah. And then he squeezed the life out of him.
While you saw his legs jerk.
That was an awful thing to watch. I mean, it really was.
It was a
And then
fantastic
the funeral.
dance, though, like a kind of a laying down dance. I thought he did a great job. They actually have coined a dance after that scene now called the Jerkin' Legs.
The jerkin' Urich?
Seth, you are killing me here.
One thing that I
Eric.
That's the episode name.
We're
One
getting
thing
sued.
that I loved about this show too is it had such subtlety that made a huge difference. Like in that one scene, the second episode, right before Daredevil came in the hallway and kicked a bunch of butt. Like, you saw the Russian going into the kid, and the kid's crying. He's going in with some food, including an apple, and the Russian comes out eating the kid's apple. And you're just like, you want to see that guy's face get jacked up.
And that is what it lost in the final episode, I thought.
Well,
that subtlety. All of a sudden, everything is in your face, and let's just forget it. I'm not even gonna. I like the show. I'm not gonna let one episode color the rest of it. I thought it was by far my favorite Marvel thing outside of Guardians of the Galaxy.
well, I feel like they kept that to some degree throughout. I agree the last episode was much more in your face, but like whenever Daredevil went to Melvin Potter to get him to make his costume, like you saw him come in and he reaches down the refrigerator, and I was expecting him to get like a beer or something, and no, he pulls out a Yoo-hoo, and I'm like, well, this guy can't be all that bad. He's got a Yoo-hoo.
Well, I think they were trying to imply that he's not all there.
Yeah.
Well,
with that.
People that drink Yoo-hoo.
I like Yoo-hoo.
Not all there.
Well, no.
No, I'm saying that's what Paul is saying. Paul just said.
That it's not. I love Yoo-hoos. I love Yoo-hoos.
Are not all
but
there.
it's like Alan said, they did the unexpected, and it was like, well, why did they do that? And then as soon as they start talking to him, it's like, well, he's like a kid.
Yeah.
That's really what he was like.
There was that scene where he was doing the jerk and Eric around the workshop.
Oh boy.
Yeah. So I love Daredevil. This show is great.
Great.
I can't wait for season 2.
It was fantastic. Me neither.
So, Man Without Fear?
Man Without Fear.
Quick synopsis?
Well, we do have a letter.
Oh,
we have a letter. Let me throw this out there to you real quick. This comes from friend of the show, John Barry. It says, "What's up, guys? Just wanted to say we loved Daredevil and can't wait for more." And when he says we, I guess he's referring to his friends who co-host the Nerds Against the Hype podcast. My first thought was that I wasn't expecting this.
I've never heard of it.
From Netflix. I know they have shows that other people consider quality programs, but this seemed different from anything they tried before. Also, loved the cast choices, and the actors all seemed to have a good chemistry together. I know the actor Charlie Cox has said that he would love to see Spider-Man have a guest spot on the show. So, he has a question for us. If you could see a character crossover from any of the Marvel properties to the show, Marvel movies to the show, which would it be?
Howard the Duck.
No.
Rocket Raccoon.
That would be interesting, but I feel like these are not sincere answers.
Well, I feel like something crazy like that happening could make for some, like, not maybe a regular episode of season 2, but like a kind of a side episode or like a standalone episode that could just be awesome. Where Daredevil meets up with Rocket and they go looking for some kind of alien in New York.
That would be so bizarre.
It would be, but it would be wonderfully bizarre.
To get this back on
Spider-Man
track,
would be a good choice.
Yeah, good old Asa Butterfield.
Punisher, as played by Thomas Jane.
Oh, Thomas Jane Punisher. Wow.
Who's that?
There's a lot of rumor that they're going to bring Punisher into it.
Ah.
But I think that he's talking about like pre-existing. I think Spider-Man would be a good choice. If I had to choose someone that's already been in the movies, I think it would have to be someone, small scale.
Yeah.
Or maybe Iron Man, like Tony Stark. He could show up.
Oh.
Or Cap.
Cap would be really cool.
Mm-hmm.
Black Panther.
Claw.
Black Panther?
Elektra.
All right.
Okay.
One of a dozen
Elektra,
Elektra. More interesting characters.
Did y'all hear that they might have cast Asa Butterfield as Spider-Man?
Yeah, I did. I heard that today.
I heard that.
That could be cool.
That.
Yeah. So, The Man Without Fear. Quick synopsis. This kid gets hit by a truck, and he gets radioactive goo in his eyes so he can see things, except not with his eyes, just with his extra senses. His dad gets killed by the mob because he's a boxer and refuses to fix a fight. And he goes to college and meets Foggy and Elektra, and Kingpin's there, and he does human trafficking, and Daredevil beats him up. Not Kingpin, though, just the human traffickers. The Man Without Fear.
And the people being trafficked. It's really kind of a brutal moment in the book, and weird.
he just loses it, and not only them, he's like beating up random bystanders and fish. He jumps in the water and just grabs a giant tuna and starts
Yeah.
beating it up.
And then Rocket Raccoon and Howard the Duck show up, and they're trying to wrestle with him to stop him, but he's just going nuts on like catfish and trout and stuff in the river, and it's just a very odd scene.
Especially when Aquaman shows up. I didn't
Well,
even know that could happen.
it happens sometimes. Marvel DCU cross. Okay, this was the book that introduced me to Daredevil, guys. Daredevil: The Man Without Fear. Here, Frank Miller, art by the wonderful John Romita Jr. And the TV show borrows a lot from this. It also borrows a ton from Frank Miller's run on the book as well. And Miller's run on Daredevil is one of my all-time favorite comic runs. And this particular story is one of my favorite comic stories. And it is a great... This reminds me of... I think you guys will probably agree with me. This reminds me a lot of the Jeff Loeb, Tim Sale color books. And
I agree with that.
it's got the same kind of tone to it and the narration and everything. And John Romita Jr.'s art on this was fantastic. And this was at a point in time where I didn't care much for Romita Jr. Because his art has evolved a lot over time. But this story, I think he did an amazing job.
I agree. It's beautifully drawn. And it's beautifully written. Like, I don't know, Frank Miller has a way of waxing poetic a little bit, especially when he's, like, describing things. And there was a lot of that in this. I just loved this book. I thought it was... I mean, honestly, in terms of Daredevil, I've read a little bit of Brubaker's stuff, and then I've read all of the current Mark Waid run with Chris Somney and the guys he was with before, Paulo Rivera, and who was the other guy he was with? I can't remember. Anyhow, so this is my first foray into the Frank Miller Daredevil, and I just was blown away by it. I could definitely see a lot of the parallels. They pulled the Stick story, which we didn't even mention really talking about the show, but the episode where it goes back and shows Stick, and then when he comes back into the fray, that was almost pulled directly from this. And even the sequence where Stick is sitting down with that, I can't think of what the guy's name is, the
Stone.
Creepy guy in the shadows. Stone.
Sticks and Stones.
Stick and Stone sitting there talking. That was almost pulled just exactly from the comic and put into the TV show. So it was, you could definitely see where they got all that from. And what better to choose? I mean, when Matt finally decides to put on this black costume and to go out and just take names, it built up to that for a while. And I don't know, I loved it. I really, really loved it.
Oh yeah, like I'd never read Frank Miller Daredevil. I'm a big fan of Frank Miller from back in the '80s. Like I haven't read much of his recent stuff, but he like Dark Knight Returns, one of my favorite books of all time. And I thought it was interesting that he did the narration instead of doing modern comic style where it was the character's thoughts. He was actually being a narrator, and his poetic style makes it work for this. And the whole, I mean, the comparison to the color books was spot on. He takes Daredevil from his origin and then takes him through different stages of his life in college with Elektra, through getting a job and striking out on his own with Foggy. But it still manages to be a cohesive story, even though there's so many time skips throughout. And the build up to the Kingpin is a real creep in this. Like he's more than
He
just.
really is.
He's not a gentle giant like in the show. He is just straight up evil. He snaps that dude's neck, and then suddenly he's into all kinds of. And his it's not Wesley. What was his name in this? The second.
I can't remember.
That guy
I don't remember what
was.
his name was.
It was heavily implied that he was a pedophile.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
I mean, he was going to take this, like, what was she, like 12, 13?
14.
Yeah.
14?
Yeah, and like just everything about him. He had that dead affect where he couldn't, like, he just had no emotions or anything, and like it was great seeing him get his due.
Yeah. Great book, and I really recommend Miller's run on Daredevil to everyone.
Tell me, Seth, the whole thing with Matt as a kid where he kind of goes for vengeance and accidentally knocks that I guess she was like a hooker out
Yeah.
of the window and kills her. Is that canon? I mean, did that
Yeah.
was it canon before this?
No, Miller brought in a lot of that kind of stuff with his run. He's also one of the guys that really made Punisher like a regular character in the Marvel U, because Punisher shows up constantly throughout Miller's run on Daredevil. So no, that was kind of unique, and a lot of the darker elements that start taking root in Miller's run, I mean, they weren't there before. Daredevil was a very light book before Miller came on. It was basically like a very similar to what Mark Waid does now, but like straight up hokey silliness.
Yeah, and I mean, just in closing, the final sequence with the Kingpin's guy there and the girl as he's going back to save her, and he tells him, "I don't want to kill you. Let her go," and he just keeps saying that. I don't know. It felt like an epic climax to a film.
Oh yeah.
Great book, great character. I love Daredevil.
Me too. It was fantastic.
I hit the wrong music cue. This is Ancillary Characters, and you can find us on the web on Facebook, facebook.com/Ancillary Characters. You can find us on Twitter at Ancillary Tweets. You can find me on Twitter at Seth Breeds Love. Alan's on Twitter at KLN Boone. Paul's on Twitter at JollyGreen05. Alan and Paul do a show called Turtle Jump. Find them on Twitter at Turtle Jump Show. Is that right?
That's right.
They're on the web at www.turtlejump.com. And you can find us every week talking about nonsense. Find my movie, which is out on Saturday, Minerva Monster. Look it up on vimeo.com/on-demand/Minerva Monster, or you can order a Blu-ray or DVD at grassmovie.com. I think that does it for this week. Peace! Seth Breedlove!
I'm cutting all of that out.
What episode number
All of
was that, Paul? 144?
144.
All right.
Yeah,
Why are you cutting that out?
Yeah, seriously, Paul. Do you hate fun?
because it's painful to listen to.
All right, I gotta go. I gotta export our entire Kickstarter list.
All right, bro.
I'll catch you
Careful.
guys later.
Just Dropbox me your file.
Yeah, shortly. Bye.
Peace.
Bye. I'll miss you.